Turn off doorbell. I think is the lead.
Do you want cameras on or off at this point?
It's up to you.
If you're a presenter, you should keep it on. Or a panelist.
Hi everyone, we're gonna get started shortly.
I'm on YouTube. I'm famous. Hello, everybody. We will be starting very shortly. As you come in, please feel free to put the organization you work for and your name in the chat. We'd love to know who's here. Also, if you've been in here before, you know we'll have an unplugged session starting at noon, 30 minutes. So as questions come up in your mind, please throw those into the chat, or feel free to just keep them and take yourself off mute, turn on your camera during the unplugged session and ask the question yourself. That's the best way to go. Also, let us know how the weather is where you're at. Did you get snow? Are you snowed in? Sean, how are you doing up there?
Duluth is getting hard, but the range is only supposed to be 1 to 3 inches. It's the same thing with the last big storm we had. That Duluth got nailed, but Sheila's probably had to take herself out. But we didn't get so bad here.
Interesting. Someone said we don't get many opportunities to say the farther north you are, the better weather you have. This winter seems to have that.
I
feel like I should use that for the farther north you go, the better the weather is. Just saying.
21 days till spring. I don't know if anybody here is from the Moorhead area or is familiar with Moorhead, home of the Dilly Bar. We have an outdoor Dairy Queen that opens today. It's closed between November and March 1st, so today it opens. Yep. Come on down, Shayla.
Don't me with a dilly bar.
Jessica O'Brien, how's your weather?
Our weather's pretty good.
Yeah.
Good today. Yeah.
No.
We had a little bit of sun this morning, which I always appreciate. Little slice of sunlight. Trying to get that vitamin D for 5 minutes. It's always a pleasure. In the middle of winter. Tail end of winter.
You didn't get any snow down there?
A little bit. Overnight.
Taller than my dogs. Here.
Okay, Jessica.
All right, it looks like we're ready to go. And so if we want to move to the next slide here, I want to welcome everyone. Good morning. And thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jessica O'Brien, and I'm the Workforce Strategy Consultant in Southeast Minnesota. And on behalf of our team, I want to welcome you all to Workforce Wednesday session on preparing for the new workforce. As was mentioned earlier, we always like to know people are joining us. We do want to invite you to put your organization or the city that you are joining us from today in the chat. And as a reminder, to everybody, our Workforce Wednesday webinars are held on a monthly basis. On the first Wednesday of every month from 11 a.m. to noon, with a special Q&A session afterwards with all of our panelists, 12 to 12:30, and a couple of other quick notes to share. Today's webinar will be recorded on our Workforce Wednesday career webpage, along with the slide deck and all of the resources and links that will be shared today. And so, as you can see on this slide, our team has created a calendar of all of our future webinar opportunities as well. And so we'll go to the next slide. And our Workforce Strategy Consultant works regionally across the state to develop innovative workforce by aligning resources, facilitating collaboration and leveraging targeted industry sectors to drive economic equity within Minnesota. And so to reach any of us on our team, we will provide a link to our regional map, and also that will have all of our contact information as well. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand things to my colleague who works in the Northwest Minnesota region, James Whirlwind Soldier.
Thanks, Jessica. This is great to see you this morning. It's great to see everybody this morning. Snowy day. I hope everybody knows. Today we're going to talk about specific demographic shift. We're seeing not only in Minnesota but across the United States. We're seeing it in different regions. Of the country. What we're specifically talking about here is the mass retirement of baby boomers leaving our workforce, and Generation Z becoming that more prominent or dominant force demographic. To start out today, let's go over the agenda. So we know where we're at here. First thing we're going to do is look over some data so we have a better idea of this Gen Z workforce is and what we can expect. After that, we'll make introductions to our panelists so we can continue this conversation. I personally really want to understand who this Generation Z workforce is, what they value and prioritize, and why I should be excited about them becoming this dominant generation in our workforce. As mentioned, as your questions come up, please add them to the chat, or again, be prepared to take your camera on during that unplugged session. So who are we talking about when we're talking about Gen Z? Specifically, we're talking about people who are between the ages of 11 and 26 this year. Different websites are going to have different age brackets, but typically we're talking about people who were born between 1997 and 2012. These were kids during the Great Recession. So these were people that experienced their parents' response to that Great Recession, how it changed their behaviors, and they had to kind of live through that. Generation Z, they're natural multitaskers, right? These are individuals that have learned very early to use multiple screens. One fact about Generation Z is they're really capable of jumping from work-related tasks to non-work-related tasks and back and forth. They have a natural skill at that. And also they are early adopters. I think another statistic I read was that Generation Z received their first phone or tablet at the age of 12 on average. By the way, I forgot to mention this. I'm going to make sure that the sources of this information that we're talking about is in our chat. Otherwise, I'll make sure to give you those sources at the end of today. In addition, this generation has grown up social, right? Us Gen Xers, solid Gen X. We weren't raised with social media, right? But one thing we know about social media is we have to proactively put ourselves out there, right? We have to define who we are. We have to define our identity, and what we like and dislike, to interact with social media. And this is something that Generation Z has paradigm lived in since childhood. And part of this part of this identity is also an ethical identity, and this seems to go across the board with regard to all of Gen Z. In fact, some statistics show that 47% of Gen Zers believe speak out against injustice, and 45% stop purchasing products because of ethical concerns. So what does that tell me as workforce? If this generation is willing to change their behavior at this age, then you know in a climate jobs for the job seeker, they're willing to change their job for one that aligns more with their priorities. We also have to remember Gen Zers, right? We're talking about kids aged, people aged between 11 and 26. For that. These are people that in a lot of situations that don't have jobs, and they don't have cash flow like they will 10 or 15 years from now. So just imagine what that kind of priority is going to do to our marketing and to our sales and so forth. So what else do we know about Gen Z? We know that they're going to be the most populous generation in history. 33.3% of the Earth's population by 2025. They're also the most diverse in the United States. 48% of Generation Zers identify as non-white. These numbers are different for Minnesota. Right? You're talking about the United States. You're talking about the South. You're talking about the South and a lot of areas quite diverse compared to Minnesota. Our numbers are different, but we're going to show those just to make sure that we understand. And it's going to be the richest generation in history. By 2030, this generation is going to have $1 trillion in spending. So again, this isn't just about us, our organizations understanding what the values and priorities are of Gen Z, so that we can be effective recruiters, effective retainers. It's also about sales. It's also about marketing and that sort of thing. Let's break this down a little bit closer for Minnesota. As you can see by this graph, Minnesota's age population that's 55 to 64 is projected to decline by nearly 156,000 by 2033. This is due to the baby boomers aging out of this. So the youngest boomers are going to be 69 in 2033. So they fall out of this bracket. That's a lot of experience. That's a lot of experience to that traditional retirement age. And Generation X, the smallest generation is not large enough to displace the loss of the boomers. So as you see the 55 to 64, Xers are starting to enter into that age bracket, and we're still at 155,000 loss. Right, that's with Gen Xers. And so if you look at this graph, millennials are a much larger group, but still not large enough to replace Generation Z is the key group that increases Minnesota's total working ages 15 to 64 by over 40,000. So it's important that they're here. What else do we know about Minnesota's Gen Z population? Let's look at these graphs right here. So the graph on the left center, and this shows an increase in people who identify as something other than non-Hispanic white. Virtually all the net population growth will be from populations of color. We see this goes all the way up to 2050. This is going to continue, right? And we're going to see these numbers, right? And we're going to larger numbers throughout the United States, but regardless, you'll see us still reaching that number. The graph on the right shows the projected for the whole United States provided by the U.S. Census. As you can see, those who identify as non-Hispanic are going to shrink by almost 19 million people by 2060. Again, this is just how demographics and these sorts of things work. As an FYI, interesting fact, William Fry, he's a demographer for Brookings Institute. He says those that identify as non-white are going to fall below the 50% range right around 2045. So that's a big thing. You think about it. Then the last graph I want to show here is Minnesota age or diversity in age by diversity by age in Minnesota. This data was provided to me by Anthony Schaffhauser. I'm going to make sure that email address is in the chat, and also with the assets we sent out at the end of this presentation. He's a great person. If you have any questions regarding this or dive, but he's bracketed off here the three age brackets that make up Gen Z. So you can see just how much more diverse that group is. And on the right, mathematics, you can see just the differences there. So the bracketed off sections, that people aged 5 to 24, 30% identify as non-white. The other bracket, 25 to 64, 19.2% identify as non-white. That's quite a jump. Right? And it's especially interesting that 5 to 24 is a much smaller range than 25 to 64. So again, when we're looking at Gen Z, we're seeing a demographic that is increasingly identifying as non-white. So what does that mean? So now that we kind of understand, just so you know, this conversation will continue next month with Jessica O'Brien, who's kind of taking this conversation to the next step on a more tactical level, and she'll deep dive into some of these statistics in a more probably more eloquent way than I was doing. So let's go ahead and take a moment here and introduce our panelists. Let's give them a couple moments to speak about what they're doing and maybe why this is such a priority for them. So first, I'd like to introduce Nancy Lyons. Nancy's a CEO, author, and a speaker. Nancy has been the forefront of work culture conversations for more than 20 years. People First as a business strategy is her guiding principle, unique and award-winning culture at her organization. Nancy has won multiple awards, including she's a national association of business owners for the Minnesota Hall of Fame. She's an inductee for that. Was awarded the most admired Minneapolis St. Paul Business Journal, and she was featured on NBC Nightly News with a segment titled "The Best Place to Work in America." Folks, when I was trying to figure out what I would say about Nancy, it was really difficult to get that number down. There's many awards. Nancy, I hope you're okay with the ones I picked. But again, there's way too many today. It's just a real honor to have you here. So thank you. Next in our panel, I want to introduce Sean Herhusky. Sean, you're kind of like a mentor to me, and a lot of other workforce strategy. So it's an honor to have you here. Sean is the manager of workforce strategy and talent pipeline for Essentia. Sean worked as a workforce strategy consultant. He was one of us. He's earned his graduate degrees from the College of Scholastica, both management. With a focus on organizational development and business administration. Sean is the current president of the Arrowhead Regional Consortium on healthcare staffing. He also serves on a variety of different organizations, including the Workforce Development Board and Revive Virginia. Again, Sean, you're one of those guys that you hear a lot about behind the scenes because you made a big impact on our team, and just again really honored to have you back here again. I know you're really busy and doing a lot of good work, so thank you so much. Next on our panel is Anna Peterson. So Anna, it's an honor to have you here. It's an honor to have you here as the head of people and culture at Deed. Anna's responsible for driving the growth and development and asset to the agency. It's people. Prior to joining Deed, Anna worked for nearly a decade for the City of Minneapolis Step Up Youth Employment Program, a national model for workforce development, where she was the director for 4 years. Anna, you're one of these amazing people that's able to bridge the gap between theory and practice. And it's really great to have you here because you can talk theory, right? And fascinate us all day, but really the good work happening. You see the needle by the application of work at Deed. Thank you for the good work. Thank you for the good work the organization that I work for. But also thanks for being part of this panel because I think you have a lot to share. And last but not least,
Chocoletta Simpson.
Chocoletta is the director of the Office Institutional Equity and Access and Chief Diversity Officer at St. Cloud State University. Her pronouns are she and her. Ms. Simpson oversees and researches and leads efforts to promote diversity and eliminate discrimination. She reports to the president and serves on the president's cabinet. She advises the president on diversity, equity, and inclusion, while also serving as a resource to members of the campus community and implementing DEI strategies and programs. Ms. Simpson has worked in higher education for over 7 years at multiple institutions throughout the Midwest. Chocoletta, you came highly recommended by Della. And after our first conversation, kind of realized that we had probably hours of conversation to go there. The depth of understanding that you have, whether that's DEI, whether that's on institutional level, education level, or even legislation. I think you're going to be a real addition to this panel, and I really thank you for being here. So without further ado, I think the next thing we need to do is just get started with our conversation. So again, please, everybody, as we speak, as we have a conversation here, any questions come up for you, to throw those into the chat, or just keep them close to yourself, and take yourself off chat, turn on your camera during the unplugged session. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Let's go and just dive in. Like I mentioned earlier, Jessica O'Brien is going to continue this conversation on a more tactical level next month. And so what we're talking about today is probably more of a strategic side of things, maybe theoretical side of things, to the practical. But it's going to give us a good opportunity to create a shared vocabulary and have a dialogue, continue that conversation next week on a more granular basis. We'll have that kind of groundwork to build off of. So Nancy, when we first spoke, you had a very interesting point of view on where we're at today, kind of the history of how we got here, our generation. If I remember right, you called it internet thinking. Could you just take a few moments? Tell us what internet thinking actually is.
Sure. Internet thinking was a phrase that my business partner and I coined for a talk we did in 1998. I think it was 1998. I was 7 years old. We were starting to recognize that the internet would be a catalyst for enormous amount of change when it came to work and culture and what people expected from workplaces. And so we tried to get people to subscribe to being part of this movement that was starting around freedom, flexibility. The internet was empowering. The internet was empowering. It gave access to information. It also opened up opportunity. Suddenly, not only could we match our values with other organizations because they were stating their values, but we could also talk to people that actually work inside of those organizations, and we could do it from the comfort of our basements in our pajama pants. So I think it's interesting that we are having these conversations as if they are new, or as if the pandemic shifted things for us, or as if it's as if it's with all due respect to this content, I think what can we all agree on about the younger generation? Well, we aren't thrilled with them. Well, because they are pushing for all of this change that nobody likes. We do like. The truth is, it is empowering for all of us. Everybody wants the same thing. We want to be seen. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be valued. We want to work in a purposeful way. And all of this came about of the internet, because of the internet, the difference Gen Xers like you and I, and the Z's or millennials that we're talking about is we thought an option. It wasn't an option. Continued to, even as we were not conforming anymore. We trying to bust out of those molds. We still thought we had to work our way up to an ideal position. And now because Gen X raised the next generation to believe that they are worthy, purposeful, and valuable human beings. They're asking for things we never had the courage to ask for. So internet thinking really was us coining a phrase that encapsulated the catalyst that was the internet for work.
You mentioned in the conversation you mentioned in the conversation a lot of this came out of Gen Xers. I don't know if these were your words, but just having a greater sense of who they were, having a greater sense of like, and a greater sense of valuing authenticity.
Yeah, I think when you look back on the media, in those defining moments for Generation X, you see a real desire to break out of traditional and hierarchical thinking, that need for permission, a desire to stop and because boomers dominated the time, we got labeled as slackers, right? When what we were trying to do was push for change. But what do people really resist? So I do think, as much as I admire, the way that younger generations value themselves and their time. I also think we wouldn't be in this place for the internet and Gen X starting to pave that ground. So I do think that we made inroads, whether or not we get any credit for it. Whatever. I'm fine.
Exactly. We're awesome, Nancy. You mentioned matching organizations and so forth, and I wanted to maybe jump bring it over to Sean. How have you seen? Because we've talked about this before. How have you seen the evolution of organizational values? And how are you seeing organizations utilize values in a way that's different than, say, when I was just entering the workforce in the 90s?
So organizational values have always kind of been defined as the core beliefs that are held by the things that are on the sign. They're the artifacts that are all over the place. What we believe in. This is what we believe in. We're customer first. We're employee centric. We're whatever. And you can really kind of break that down into the espoused values, which is basically what they say they do, the value that they say they're offering, what they say they believe. Then there's the theory and use, or the enacted values, which is what they're actually doing. And I think what's kind of changed and evolved over time is the company wasn't living the values that they indicated. There was some disharmony in the organization. But especially if the unemployment rate was really high, or we're in the middle of the Great Recession or something. There was the people tolerated it. They maybe didn't like it, but they still tolerated it. Now, with some of the criteria that you talked about in your introduction, there's a whole new level of mobility in the workforce. And your work is not necessarily tied to that particular job. So if you go to a company and they say we believe in core organizational values, and you go there and they're not, you don't have to stay there. You can hop over to an organization that matches the values, which is kind of what you were talking about earlier. There's just much more mobility and fluidity in the market, where you're not stuck in one place. If you go there, the organizational values that you were kind of are not adequately represented. You can hop somewhere else that is more aligned with your value set.
Yeah. Do you think organizations are recognizing that as a tool?
I think so. As there's more emphasis on value proposition, employer brand. Some of the other things that are as hiring becomes more and more difficult, they're realizing that retention is a key element in order to kind of survive this. You can't really grow your way out of the situation. There's no one to take in. You've really got to understand why people are leaving your organization. One of the key reasons people leave is the mismatch between values and the actual values that are being demonstrated.
You mentioned it. Employee value proposition. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
And then, technically, to the Wikipedia explanation, it's the unique set of benefits. That an employer receives capabilities, and experience they bring to a company. I usually say it's your elevator pitch. It's your 15 seconds. Why would you ever work for me? And so the reason that's important is because there's so many people, I guess, and there's so much opportunity, to even nonlinear career pathways, completely switching industries, that you have to be able to articulate, just like an elevator pitch, why you should come work for me. It's one of those things that I should have prepared. Why would I go to your hospital? Why would I go to your hospital? Why would I not work at this hospital? You've got to be able to articulate that. You've got to be able to articulate that. And you've got to be able to articulate in a meaningful way that means something. So to tie it back to the organization, we believe in justice, but we believe in fairness, we believe in equity for the entire population. These things that we stand for, these are things that gravitate towards. You got to be able to articulate that effectively and quickly.
Yeah. It's super interesting and different from when I was entering the workforce, when I was entering my career or building my career at the beginning. It was such a different market for work. It was such a different market for employers didn't need to fish so hard for talent. It seemed like there was so many opportunities out there by giving them a job in the first place. And that seems to have turned around. Organizations I work with, they're doing everything they can to keep people, and they do understand that idea of employer value proposition. And I just want to maybe throw it out to the entire panel. Have you seen innovations with regards to that employer value proposition? Ways that are bringing people in, that's putting them setting them aside, elevating them from the competition. Unexpected question. But maybe while we're thinking about that, I'm going to pivot it over to Anna. That works for me. So Anna, you brought up something very interesting before that I just a great idea. Our topic. And it relates to what Jessica's going to talk about. What you talked about was building a culture of responsibility. Which when you first started talking about that, all I heard, and it got me scared. And I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. But as you continue to discuss what that meant, that culture of accountability, that culture of OKRs, it was something that I think, again, just like everybody wants it. Everybody wants it. And I think the way I'm going to allow you to describe it better, but I think what you're basically saying was that we're talking about organizational culture that's more outcome-oriented versus process. First off, am I correct? And number two, could you build on that idea?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So OKRs is objective key results, and it's something that a lot of private sector companies use to measure if they're doing what they say they're going to do and getting the outcomes that they want. And that's something that when Commissioner Grove started at DEED, he brought to DEED, and I led that charge for the first few years. And I've been at DEED for 4 years, so it's been about 4 years since we adopted the OKR system. And the first thing we had to do was teach people the system, right? So we taught people the system, we taught people how to measure it. And I think the most important part for DEED was the drumbeat of continuing, right? Every quarter we would score them, and every quarter at the town hall meetings we would say, here's where we're at. And honestly, that first year that we did it, we had key results that we didn't have the data to measure. We were learning as we go. We're like, okay, we don't really have a score for this because we can't figure out how to measure it, or that there's a delay in the data, or and we learned together how to do it. Now that it's been 4 years, we're doing that really well. And I think what that does for the people of DEED is you have this renewed focus on the mission and the goals for that year, right? And unique to state government and to specifically is like we have this amazing mission to empower the growth of the Minnesota economy for everyone. Right, so that's really attractive for the Gen Z population when they are looking for that mission work. But what happens in state government is lawmakers make incredible laws for the people, and then they get put at different agencies. And they don't always put the people to stand up those programs. So when we have OKRs, you start to see what you should stop doing. not stop doing legislatively. We are a compliance agency. We will always be compliant. We always go by the law. But it starts to put a clearer focus on this is my work. Right. And in that, you start to get this collective excitement about the work in a different kind of way. And I think that's why it's important culturally to have that kind of focus on and OKRs with different models and weeks as well. And then I have kind of an answer when I was listening to Sean talking about that values mismatch. I had a thought about that when he was talking. So you join a company, love what their values are, excited about the mission, and then you get there and you're like, I'm really focusing on the customer, and as you're learning your job about what to do. And I think that one thing we say is like good ideas come from everyone, come from everywhere. It's not just leaders that have great ideas. So I would ask you at your companies, where do people go with their great ideas? Because if you have the values mismatch and you're that employee who's like kind of a bummer, I signed up for, but I have a good idea on how we could make that match better. Where do I go with that idea? And something we've done is we launched an innovation lab where we can go and we workshop those ideas, human-centered design approach, and talk to our customers and try to change the way we do the work. And I think that empowers people to stay too, because they can say, I don't like this, and I have the power to somehow go figure out how to change it. And we've had some great success in that as well.
Am I wrong when I say this is taking this in maybe a different direction, maybe an unexpected turn to something in my mind? If I remember hearing correctly, Deed has a way of communicating feedback anonymously. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the big ways when I joined Deed, there was just I would say an atrophy of culture. It just wasn't a thing that we really talked about. Some teams talked about it, visions within Deed, did a great job with it. It wasn't something that we focused on, supporting our people or really bringing everybody together toward goals. And so we have our employee survey that we do every year, and that becomes the blueprint for what we do. It's what people say they want and need, and then we have an employee committee that really looks at those results and builds on like actions that we're going to take. Another thing is like doing it, right? Not just saying that we're going to do it. We do an employee survey and stick it in a drawer. We have almost 80% response rate on these surveys. And the reason why is because we're totally transparent about what you said you needed and wanted, what the committee thinks do, and then what we're doing, and where we fell down, right? Like, we thought we would do this by this date. We didn't do it yet, but we're planning the plan. So that survey is anonymous, and then we also have multiple other ways that we look to get anonymous feedback because in my role, I don't know about the issue. I can't help.
I've worked for organizations in the past. Again, panelists, please chime in anytime. I've worked with organizations in the past. Really been against allowing communication methods that are anonymous or confidential. And what would you say to an employer, an executive who feels that that's a bad idea?
Go back to me. Go ahead.
Everybody.
Talk aloud, please.
Well, I think it's a really good question. And Anna hit on what I know as the term psychological safety in the workplace, and that ability to share my thoughts and ideas and it be supported. I think the truth is that all of us do not feel like we have psychological safety, and so therefore having an ability to share your thoughts and concerns and not be identified is a good idea, especially if more of the concern is to kind of hear and listen to what the feedback is and concerns are, so that as an organization you can address them without pointing folks out. I think that is always a good method. And honestly, just thinking about the different as we talk about demographics, right? Most of our newer generation, they're not really that. Some of them are pretty vocal, but I know some, especially working on college campus. That sometimes that anonymous or screen protection is what I call it, gives them that added measure of courage. So I think it's certainly a good idea and something that should be considered when you're trying to gain feedback to make change.
Chocolate, could you talk for a second? Just about how the college experience has changed from, let's say, even like 10 years ago, and maybe ask, are those changes made to accommodate a new generation, or was it more like a natural kind of evolution?
No, that's a good question. Thank you, James, for that. So I've had the pleasure of higher education career, my whole over 7 years now. And I would say that the culture has significantly changed, especially as we talk about the demographics, but also the change in race, sexual orientation, and again the laws and the different what I call external sources that play into that also have an impact. But I also think because of those trends, we have an opportunity, especially as higher education, to ensure that we're paying attention to those trends, changing things, accommodating things, reviewing things. I also think that the pandemic has significantly impacted the needs of our next generation, especially from the perspective of a student. Students want in-person, they want online courses, they want hybrid, mix of both. And so how are we adapting, but also from a workplace perspective, our pivot to even consider remote work. That is very clear trend that everyone's excited about, and we've learned through the pandemic that there are some jobs you can do remotely. And so how are we? And we are currently here at St. Cloud State University, piloting those efforts within our own IT department. And even like the creation of esports, like that's totally a thing, folks. You can go to school, and esports is gaming, right? So those different opportunities that we as a leader in higher education can adapt to make sure that we're paying attention to that. And I also think that goes into psychological safety not only employees but students, right? Like, can I come here? Can I learn? And can I be safe in that space? So how are we creating that inclusive and welcoming opportunities for especially this next generation?
That's fascinating. You brought up esports. I think it was at Central Lakes College getting a tour, and they actually have an department, like a team.
We do. Yes.
It's so interesting. I love it. Yeah, I want to be part of that. I'll probably lose, but I still want to participate. So one thing I hear a lot about Gen Z is this idea of a renewed or a new focus on mental health and wellness. And I think this kind of relates to what Nancy said in that I think this is something that everybody kind of desires. Chocolata, how has the culture of universities and colleges changed in that way with regard to mental health and wellness? And then like what do you think organizations learn from that, from what you've learned?
Absolutely good question. We of course have had, I think even before the pandemic, mental health has always been a component. As you know, most campuses, they have resources on campus, counselors, especially in the line of work that I do with discrimination and harassment. That is always a resource and something that we're encouraging students to utilize. But I think just again with the pandemic and widening of eyes that we have some severe issues when it comes to mental health, even what that means. What does it mean to be mentally healthy? And how do you get that support you need? And so we, of course, on our campus, we have a department, but we also have others who are trained to, again, listen to those conversations, identify if there's some suicidal ideation pieces. And our students come with so much, like coming to a campus, especially those, we have a very diverse, culturally diverse campus. And so, coming from across the sea, right, from a whole different country to a space of Minnesota where we have lots of nice snow, and just that adjustment and just being away from family, especially our domestic students, they experience that same thing. And so we really center our work. And I shouldn't talk about it, but we have a lot of things that we do here, especially as it relates to our It's Time initiative and strategies that really pay attention to the needs of our students, because those needs are different, especially if you're thinking about mental health, if you're thinking about even that perspective from just a people of color situation. And so we just really believe that if we're not paying attention to those pieces from a student perspective and employee, we have lots of resources on campus from an employee perspective as well. So that workforce, I think, piece, again, as we're talking about the demographics and how we really educate our upcoming generation and support them in those efforts of what that means. I think it's going to be very significant if we want folks to come to our organizations and stay and feel, again, safe.
I think it's going to be huge. I can't remember what organization put it out, but it was a study regarding like what age brackets or demographics are actually utilizing these wellness and mental health services within organizations, and it is the younger generations, right? But it's also the biggest utilizers of these programs are the older generations too. Which again, I think goes back to Nancy's point. Nancy, like I think one thing that I almost assume jobs are going to provide is that idea of an employee assistance program. Right? It almost seems like it's just something you kind of have to do as an organization. Do you remember the point like that wasn't just a given? Or kind of like organizations crossed over that threshold where it was just something that at a bare minimum you have to offer your employees?
I think. Do I remember? Are you suggesting that I'm old? Do I remember? I don't know that there was a moment in time where I started seeing more of that. But I do think that it's like everything else. Right? It becomes part of the cultural. The expectations that people have become part of the cultural conversation. And suddenly there's a movement. And I also really wonder if the programs we put in place, the affinity groups, if they are for the people, employee assistance programs, what have you, if they're for the people or if they're for the organization. And I always try to encourage folks to really center the workforce in developing anything, because that's not something that organizations are used to. They're used to thinking about the needs of the mothership, which I think is really important. But those are entrenched in capitalist thinking, right? And we have to shift how we're thinking in order to make room for the diversity of thought and big ideas and abilities and cultures that we need to invite through our doors to really deliver the best work product.
So that reminds me a lot about HR. HR used to be this big compliance, right? That's all they were. That's all they did was try to keep the organization out of lawsuits, right? But now they're at the forefront of culture change and DEI and all this really great stuff. And how do we get that transitional mindset into more of an operational point of view, or into the operations of organizations? Throw that out to the group. Because it's always bothered me. Why are some of these cultural ideas isolated in HR and not being really implemented, utilized, and cheerled by operations and so forth?
Well, I don't know that they always are. I don't actually know that HR. First of all, I think when you're talking big cultural shifts or ideals, they cannot exist on an island. It's like DEI. So many organizations, they subscribe to the idea of DEI because right now they have to, and then they put it on an island and wonder why it's not working. I think the same can be said for sort of how you're talking about HR. I think we imagine that HR should be responsible for culture, and a lot of HR departments talk a good game. But I think the organization has to start with leadership, and it has to be a constant drumbeat, and it has to, and I think there's got to be a layer of any organization that sets the tone. But for HR to own culture is silly. We all own culture. We all own culture. We all are part of how it feels to exist and commit to an organization. And if we don't see ourselves as being empowered and having some amount of accountability for the health of the culture that we operate in, then we're doing it wrong. And we won't be able to attract talent because what do people come to places for? Yes, your values, but also because I want to work with you. Because something about you resonates with me. And when I walk through the door, if you fed me a bag of goods and I have to sit next to somebody who's toxic, who doesn't recognize their role in the culture, I'm out. I don't leave because of organizations, right? I leave because of bad bosses. I leave because of unhealthy or toxic environments. So HR alone cannot manage culture.
I appreciate what Nancy just said because we do get in silos. Just one person is responsible for one thing. But what I tell employees and students all the time that our culture is an impact you and I and our interactions and our conversations and how we treat people here. And I really think our purpose, especially I feel like it is here on this campus, is about caring for the entire human being and all of those identities and intersectionalities thereof, and not just the work that we hired. The job that they perform. If it's truly about people, then we can show that and it can be seen and also felt by the folks who do come to work for organizations.
Yeah. Culture always is, right?
I think that's something that did specifically was take my role out of HR and say this is we need this and we need it out of the commissioner's office. It's that important. We're doing this. And one thing I always say to everyone and anyone who's on this call has probably heard this is if I am doing this job alone, then I will fail. Because it is the job of everyone, and that is absolutely true with the way that we are approaching DEI work as well. And Chocoletta mentioned earlier psychological safety. There's some really interesting research about meeting your goals better if your organization has psychological safety, right? And encourage you to read some of that. And we're kind of have been on a 18-month journey with our managers and supervisors to say what is psychological safety? How do you measure it in your teams? How do you talk about it? And how do you what tactical ways can you move forward if you get a score that's low here or there? And so those are all things that are person-centric. But when you are person-centric, you will meet your goals better. Right? So it's not one or the other. It's saying that if I have a culture that I believe in and I can be part of it and feel like I make that difference and feel welcome at work and that psychological safety, be myself, my whole self and share my ideas. Yeah, you might start with anonymous feedback. You hope you get to a place where you can share that. It's not anonymous, but it's a work in progress. It takes a long time. You have to have somebody who it's not tacked down to HR. Somebody whose role it is take on this work and to continue it.
It has to be intentional, right?
Very intentional. Yeah.
So psychological safety seems like a no-brainer. Just like you said, there's so much evidence and studies out there showing how it positively impacts the organization in so many ways. Why is this? And maybe I'm wrong. Why does this seem to be a topic now and not quote unquote before?
Well, I think that I don't know Amy Edmondson is a Harvard researcher and professor who kind of fell upon this in her research. She was looking for something else and found what then became psychological safety in her research there. I don't know when she started that. I don't know the year, but I think that to me was the point. She said, "Hey, I'm onto something. What is this about teams that we're looking at?" And then coined the phrase psychological safety, and she coined it. And so I think that her research really brought it to the forefront. She did a TED Talk, and I think that really catapulted it and kind of went viral. But her ongoing research then has really dug in and shown what a difference it can make at organizations. So I think maybe before we called it trust, right? Mm-hmm. Trust and psychological safety are different. They are different. Trust is a component, but it's more than that. So I think that we talked about it differently. I don't love the term psychological safety. I like plain language. At I call it building strong teams. Because it's a lot less academic. If I say to anyone, do you want to build a strong team? You go, yeah. But if I say, do you want psychological safety? Somebody might say yes. Somebody might say what?
Yeah.
Right? So how
And
can
it
we
does from academia. I'm sorry.
I love it. I love that you brought it up. Thank you for bringing it up. It's really important. But for all of my constituents, which are the DEED employees, I want them to know what I'm talking about without a lesson first, right? So I can hook them with building strong teams, and then say, here's how we do it. It's tools based on this research.
And I really love what Anna and Nancy said about this upcoming generation and how they're just pushing the curve, pushing the boundaries. And I really think they require it. I don't think it's no longer an option for this generation that's coming. We all know they'll cancel you real quick or leave another place of business or institution. But I think mental health is no longer. I think at some point we just consider it a thing, right? There's things around it that you have to do, but I think it's more for this newer generation because it's real, it's identifiable, and they know what they need, more so than maybe other generations, even millennials, to make sure that they do have some mental health in that workplace life balance, right? All the things that come with just kind of knowing what you need and what you want from even an organization.
Chocolate. Sorry, go ahead, Sean. Please.
I was gonna say, I'm assuming you're slightly more pragmatic. I think it's based on necessity. I mean, back in the day during the Great Recession, when you had 11 job seekers for every available job out there, you could have an exceptionally high turnover rate. You could burn through employees. You could have people leave and stuff like that, and you could easily replace them. Now you can't. Now, if your employee leaves, it could be months, or you could get no applications for that open position for quite a long time, if ever. So because of that, things like that we're discussing here become much, much more important. And having a lower, having a good retention rate becomes absolutely vital to surviving this.
Absolutely.
I just want to piggyback one thing. When we talk about psychological safety, one of the things that I try to remind folks all the time is the key to a healthy culture is abandoning judgment. And I think when we think about individual responsibility for culture, we forget how simple it can be to drop our expectations of other people, that they walk through the door making us comfortable. When we can really convince a workforce to just let go of some of the pettiness that we were all raised with. Let's be honest. And just open our hearts and minds to big ideas and contributions of people that maybe aren't like us. When we do that, we are contributing to healthy culture and building stronger teams.
So, Anna, you're going to say something?
Nancy, I would add to that. It's building stronger teams and a deeper culture, but it's also better ideas on how to get the work done, right? If we listen to all of the vast variety of many voices that come without that judgment, we start to hear different things, and we start to hear good ideas in a different kind of way. Then if we're bringing that judgment that as you say, we all have, so we can start to drop not only as better, but the business processes are better, and the way we serve our customers better as well.
And one additional piggyback, because I just love how Nancy said it, if we were able to drop pettiness, right, and the biases who we are, one step further, even if you can't automatically make them go away, because we know through research that we all have them when we come with them from our experiences. But if you can check them. I tell students all the time, let's check them at the door. What are my biases, right? What are the issues that I come with? Just because, and there's some that we don't know. But how can we move forward knowing what those are and just acknowledge what that looks like for us? I love that. Thank you for that. We're petty. We're all petty.
We just have to know it, though, right? Recognize it so it doesn't get in the way of us making good decisions.
I see a great question in the chat here from Patrice O'Neill. Hi, Patrice. Patrice says, how are bureaucracy is a full barrier, and how are middle managers being empowered to lead your organization? And I love this question because I feel like middle managers have all the power. And also you have to balance that superpower. They have like in the end, leadership can do a lot, really. But your specific team is your team culture, your experience every day. So the middle managers have all the power there to make that team great and to make that every experience great. But we have to balance that with accountability, right? Because we also know that there's some middle managers at any organization who aren't great. So how do we balance like the power that they hold with the accountability factors? And I think OKRs play into that as well. It's like how are we tracking whether managers have the support they need to do great for their teams, right? To further empower them, but also to raise them up if they're not making a great team culture. Good question. Thanks.
I can't believe we're out of time. This is really too bad. We'll have a conference next time. Before I turn it over to Brian to talk about next month's Workforce Wednesday, I want to give each of you about 30 seconds. Just give one last piece of advice or something that's on the top of your mind that you can share with our audience. So chuckle that up. Number one, again, thank you so much for joining us. Can you share one piece of advice or information for our crew here?
You can't give an academic 30 seconds to do that. But I can. One is if I could be a resource to anyone, especially again, I do come from the space of higher education. I do consider us leaders in the space, because we are preparing your workforce for tomorrow. So again, please don't hesitate to contact me if I could be a support or a partner.
Thank you. Anna, I can't wait to continue to ride in your coat for as long as I can. What is one piece of advice or recommendation for our audience?
One is hard, but I have two in there.
Okay.
For a decade, I worked for the youth employment program. So I worked with teenagers all the time. And I would say, if you are, do you ever need a giant dose of hope? Go hang out with your because the future is extremely bright. When we're talking about this generation, boy, I can't wait to work with more of them, right? And I said the same thing about millennials and anyone behind Gen X as well. I'd also say that as we talk about Gen X, who are often leaders in organizations now, are like, this is great news for Gen X. We are flexible and we are adaptable and we are ready. We are open to that kind of change. So as leaders, we will navigate welcoming into the workplace well if we allow for it, right? So throwing those judgments aside and being the adaptable generation is going to bode well for us all working together.
I can't wait to hand the keys over. I'm ready to do it now. Gen Z, that generation. I mean, just from my own experience, family members and friends. There's a lot of good hearts. I'm really excited to see what they can do. Sean. Thank you, my friend, for joining us. One piece of advice. 30 seconds.
Sure. I guess my one piece of advice is the way things are hiring in the labor force right now. You're not going to be able to grow your way out of this current situation. What you've got to be able to do is to articulate what you're about, what you stand for, and be able to articulate why you want to work. Why would someone want to work for you? And you've got to be able to articulate that. And you've got to be able to articulate that also to your current employees as well, and keep that going strong because this is the labor force issues that we're seeing right now. It's going to exist for the next 10 years. It's our current reality, and we got to adapt effectively.
Thanks, John. I'm glad you're here. Continue to learn from you. I know you just haven't turned your back on 100% just yet. Nancy, again, I'm so honored to have you. I'm going to throw a link in the chat to Nancy's book, Work Like a Boss. Amazing piece of literature, exciting. Nancy, again, thank you. It's an honor to have you here. What is one piece of advice or recommendation you have for our audience?
Well, there's a question in the chat just about what I said about that a healthy culture needs and its lack of judgment. So I guess for me, the advice that I give is always impress upon the workforce their role in shifting culture and making things better. It's not just about leadership dictating something. It's not about us abdicating responsibility to leadership. It's about recognizing that when you join an organization, you are part of how it will grow and evolve. You have a role in that. You have a role in that, and you have power. I also think one of the biggest issues that most organizations are grappling with is the change required to get to this place where we are open to the next generation. And I think it's important for organizations to remember that if you want the change to happen, if you want your organization to change, you have to be able to invite people to something better. So you need to be able to articulate exactly what it is you are trying to do and where you're trying to go and why. Because if you can't compel them, they are not going to follow. They'll find somebody who will.
That's exciting and inspiring. It's to really celebrate who you are, right? And that get excited about that. Hopefully people see it that way. I would like to pass the mic over to Jessica. Jessica, you want to give us a little introduction or perspective on what's happening?
Yeah, so I loved all of the whole perspective of this whole panel, and I really appreciate this last note about inviting people to something better. And so I'm very excited to invite you all to our next Workforce Wednesday webinar on April 5th. Where we are going to be talking about cultivating a supportive workplace culture for youth. And so in that same frame of inviting people to something better and meaningful. We are going to hear from a panel who are going to share about innovative approaches, practices, and programs that are engaging and supporting youth in meaningful ways. And so I am super excited about it, and we hope that you join us for kind of a deeper discussion continuing from today. So back to you, James.
Thank you very much. I just lost power. I hope that didn't impact what everybody was seeing. But it seems like I'm back now. So thanks so much again, panelists, Nancy, Sean, Chocoletta, and Anna. This was an amazing conversation. We could have kept it going. For the audience, stick around. We're going to start the unplug session here shortly. And with that, I would like to go ahead and hand it over to Della Ludwig, our comrade in arms from Minnesota. Della is going to facilitate our unplug session. Thanks, Della.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, James. Wow, it was really cool. Excellent panel discussion. Obviously, again, ran out of time. We had over 500 people registered for this presentation and panel discussion. Just tells you what a hot topic this is. And lots of employers and businesses really interested to learn more about this topic. We did have topic. And we did have some of them we got to, some of them we did not. We will go ahead and we will discuss those during our panel. And just want to kind of jump into that right away. Of course, that hour went really super fast.